welcome back to the new intro music for Buzzer Beater Banter.
Got us in the club at the EDM show, bro. Come on.
That was a racing inspired, copyright free theme.
Yeah, that was some Need for Speed shit. For sure.
And I did that in honor of Nick. We're trying to find our official theme song, so maybe that'll be it. But welcome into another episode of Buzzer Beater Banter. This is, hold on, I'll tell you really quickly. This is episode 11, with Nick and myself. We have a very special guest today. We have, in terms of people who cover the Saints, I could say that for both Nick and I, this guy is our favorite. He is the official Buzzer Beater Banter guy that we're going to call when we cover Saints. Obviously, we'll call other people, but this is our main guy, just like Jake Madison's our main Pelicans guy. This guy's the writer for The Spun by SI Now. He's also the host of the Saints podcast for Boot Crew Media. It is none other than my guy, Chris Rosvoglou. Super excited to get him on. He even talks a little movies with us, so that'll be our main Saints conversation, so we won't really talk Saints too much. Nick and I will maybe get a little bit in, but what you can expect on this episode, March Madness talk, men's and women's, talks about LSU and Angel Reese. There's some things I really want to talk about that because a lot of the reactions last night upset me. Of course, we're going to talk Pelicans, and then we have Nick's baseball corner. But before we get into that, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. Obviously, pretty big stuff happening for me. Launched a blog site.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday, legitimately on a whim, bro.
I'm glad you did, though.
I was like, for the last 2-3 weeks, I've been telling everyone who will listen, I'm like, man, I miss writing blogs for sport. I miss writing sports blogs.
And you know that, like, at Bros Who Think, it's like, I told you, I just can't, I don't have the time to really run that. So it's amazing that you started one. It's literally going to go hand in hand with this show, hand in hand with the network. The basically, when you think of it, the written side of Bros Who Think is none other than what you created. Tell the people the name and everything.
Vagabond Sports, which is really cool. I was able to get a name, and what I kind of like about that too is it leans in with my other handles on the internet of like Rogue Revenant and Vagabonds and people who are breaking the rules, which I'm all about doing.
I just like that it has a good an acronym, because BWT, BWB, AT, TWS for the Work Shoot Show, Buzzer Beater Banter, Triple B, VGBD, baby. It just falls in line.
And I know, like, I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but it's gonna look so badass on a t-shirt too.
Oh, I'm so excited! Like, literally everything that we talked about in the beginning of January about the plans for the network, streaming, more in-person stuff, more content, the written stuff, scripted shows, everything's coming into play now. I had to buy some equipment. It took the first couple of months, but look, if you look at this week, look at the drops that we're doing this week, and that'll show the future.
Yeah,
we have written stories from Nick. I'll have at least 2 written stories this week up. In the wrestling world, we have 3 wrestling podcasts that are coming. And on a normal week after this, it'll probably be 2 streams and 2 pods. We're gonna have multiple anime stuff, multiple sports podcasts. We are legitimately committed to giving you all the best content across the board: movies, TV, sports, music. All of it. We want to be your hub when it comes to content, both written, listened to, and watched.
Absolutely. So, and I mean, at the end of the day, and I put it, if we're obviously going to link the Vagabond site. I'm not gonna lie to you. I spent no money on it right now. It's just like a hobby. Like, I say hobby. I'm taking it seriously, though. But it's like, I legitimately, Lyn, it still has like the WordPress in the logo.
Yeah, I saw.
I had to call it Vagabond Sports.
I wanted to talk to you about that. Like, we got to change how it looks. But I know that's coming.
Well, so the site design, I am not a web designer. I have a couple of friends that are going to help me out, but I am doing it all myself.
Sure.
I'm gonna be hosting the whole site myself. So all that stuff's super exciting, and as it builds out and gets more and more,
it just works because like we have a built-in following that will go to Vagabond Sports from Bros Who Think, and then you have writers that you can choose from the. It just work.
Yeah.
We always said when you weren't working on the pod about how you felt that Bros Who Think should have a written component, and like you were always right. And I'm just glad that you took the initiative to say, hey, I'll make this, I'll partner with you guys. That way you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. And that's what I always want. If you're a content creator out there and there's something you can add to Bros Who Think, and you think you can come in and add to Bros Who Think or Vagabond Sports, let us know, because we would love to. But it can't just be, hey, I have a podcast. No. You have to have a plan. Nick had a plan and was like, this is what I'm doing different than what you guys are already doing. If you can add something that's different than what we're doing, we would love that. We would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the whole point of a network, is having creators who are into different things be able to work together and
have the freedom to make what they want. And I think your first blog put out at least not just your feelings, but I guess how me, Blaze, and Norm felt as well about working at a corporation, that a media conglomerate. Yeah. We couldn't write what we wanted. Like, that's just the truth.
Yeah,
we had to write and not even like, you think sports, okay, y'all can write about anything. No, I was told that the Pelicans do not get enough clicks. Don't write about basketball. Exactly. I was told, essentially, Nick, and I can say this now, this is how I felt. Lafayette didn't care for that black sport. Don't write about it. Like, that's how I felt.
Which is not the truth of the area. I know so many people that are in love with basketball. And I mean, like, local, like, local stuff.
Write about baseball, like
local stuff push, but don't write about baseball. It's like, look, at the end of the day, you know, it's
crazy.
I traded an admittedly subpar hourly rate for the ability to write what I want. And that's something that I don't think I'll ever regret.
No, I never regret either. And I thank them because they gave us experience.
Yeah. No.
And we got to meet each other. Like,
absolutely.
A lot of great things happen.
At the end of the day, if Vagabond never makes me a cent, it's still doing exactly what I want it to do, which is give me a platform just to be able to maybe make somebody laugh. Because at the end of the day, like, I want to share information about sports, but more than anything else, I want to be entertained.
Yeah, you want to get your
and I want to entertain people.
What you like about writing, you want to get that out, and maybe there's someone who feels the same way you do, and that's how I feel about it. It's like, we feel that there's a need in the market, not only locally but nationally, for the type of content we're giving. I don't think, for as many podcasts that there are out there, in terms of mainstream, in terms of the top market, there's only one other network that kind of does what we're doing, and that's The Ringer. That is it. Yeah. And like, The Ringer is a kind of low-key a bunch of old people. Like, let's call it.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the thing is, when I started it, and you mentioned this to me too, and I think you made a good point in this. You were like, man, I don't know about Vagabond Sports. Like, do you really want to limit yourself to just sports? And I was like, yeah, and that's fine. Having a targeted space to go, it's Vagabond Sports is fine. But in the last week, I mean, I'm a big Barstool guy. In the last week, I've gone to the Barstool blog.
The Ringer and Barstool is the other one.
But even Barstool, like, there's stuff that we touch on. Like, you guys at Bros Who Think for mostly like the anime talk and that kind of stuff. Barstool wouldn't touch that with a 30-foot pole.
And the Ringer just has one nerd show.
The nerd culture, and I think I call it nerd culture. It's video games and tabletop games, anime, like TV shows, adult animation, all that stuff's very like, it's kind of got this sort of veneer on it of like, be careful. They got weird fans. They got like, and it's
like, no, bro.
So many of us are like, just
there's a bunch of normal people
at the bar who are
and also, just to piggyback on what you're saying, yes, there's the nerd culture, but there's also the guy who you wouldn't think is a nerd that watches sports but loves anime. Yeah. And then there's anime lovers who may be nerds that love sports. And the thing is, we can present it in them a way to them that can combine their love of not only anime but sports. Like, I have a story just to let you guys know. I'm gonna write where I compare the league's top the NBA league's top athletes, and this will be a series. I'll do it for the NFL as well. I'll get Nick's help to do it for pro baseball, but compare these athletes to either their anime counterpart or their superhero counterpart. And I think that will go great. Yes.
Yeah, that's so creative, and that's so cool.
And that's something we could have never written before.
Absolutely. That's what I go back to. I always go back to a blog I wrote
Your best one that they got mad about?
Yeah, probably like it was probably like only my second or third month at the station. The Saints weren't doing well that year, and I wrote a blog called Three Things the Saints. What is it? 3 ways the Saints could improve by an unathletic sports blogger.
Yeah,
and
that was a great blog.
The whole blog was just me taking the piss about like people who like armchair analysts that sit around and think they can explain to coaches how they should be coaching their teams.
Madden.
And yeah, because they played Madden, or because I work for insert media corporation, sports media corporation here. I work for Bleacher Report,
but never played football or basketball at all.
Right. I mean, like, I put down two fucking practice reps on my varsity team, and this is why the Saints suck dick. No, that's not how things should be. And we're free to give our opinion and how I think, and I did actually give my opinion on how I thought they could make things better. But you got to understand that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I think that's a problem we have with journalism of all types, but I'm going to leave that alone. Today is that people have no humility, and they have no ability to laugh at themselves and
admit when you're wrong.
For what it's worth, corporations don't want you to do that either.
No, they don't.
Then that comes back on them, and then they think they look bad. That's fine. I remember getting like told that I should be fired. I should lose my livelihood. Like I was useless because I accidentally put Arkansas State instead of Texas State in a vlog.
I remember that.
I got the freaking mascot right and everything, and I just put Texas instead of Arkansas State purely as just a typo, slip of the mind. And those kinds of things, like on my blog, you make a mistake, you make a typo, whatever. Yeah, we'll fix it. We'll address it. You fuck up the name of a team, we'll laugh at you, and then we'll move on. Like,
and just like with the pods, if we say an opinion that we end up being wrong about, we come back and say, "Hey, we were wrong.
Yeah. I'm gonna say some stupid shit this podcast. I already know. with baseball, the article I put out today about LSU baseball losing to Southern, I figured that's gonna piss people off. So I mean, yeah.
Facts. No, but you're right.
But that's the point. Like, I want you to get mad at me. I want you to come tell me in a comment why I'm an idiot. And that's kind of the point. That's what sports is for. You go to the sports bar, you get in it with the guy across the table wearing an Alabama shirt, and you're wearing an LSU shirt or whatever.
And that shows that we're just not these big know-it-alls that don't want to listen to our supporters, our listeners, our readers, whatever it is, or our haters, whatever it is. And that's what I think we bring with Bros Who Think, Vagabond Sports, our conglomeration, 100%. But like I said, we got a lot to get into, and remember, we have very special guest Chris Rosvoglou coming on to talk Saints, and he does give us.
I love that
on Marvel.
I love that dude. He needs to consider a name change.
That's his name. That's his actual name.
I know. But like, I always feel bad. I want to make sure I say it right.
Well, yeah, get it right, brother.
Hey.
That's hilarious. But also, just because this is sports adjacent, I'll say this here. It is WrestleMania week. So if you are a wrestling fan, we have you covered. So far, we have dropped episode 34 of the Work Shoot Show with TikTok, our Wrestle Talk creator, Malik Kelly. He came on, gave his thoughts on the WrestleMania buildup, on the WrestleMania card. He gave his picks among talking about the Ruthless Aggression era. And I discussed, again, saying when we were wrong, I gave an apology to CM Punk because his interview with Ariel Helwani came out yesterday. I discussed that, along with the importance of the 3 black women of Jade, Bianca, and Naomi teaming together, pointing at the WrestleMania sign, and the importance of that. So that episode's out now. Thursday night, literally right after we record, Pete and I's picks for WrestleMania will be out. The official Work Shoot Show picks, along with a conversation with another Wrestle Talk creator of Jonathan, who's from Louisiana. This guy is amazing when it comes to talking wrestling. Over 14,000 followers, and he was more than willing to come and talk to us. So that is super important. So we got that. And then, like I said, I'll have some written stories on Vagabond this starting tonight and then later this week about WrestleMania. But without further ado, we gave you the rundown. We plugged everything. Let's start off with March Madness. Let's do the men's first, then we'll get to the women, because there's a funny story about the men's. Boy. Nick, literally, so I knew my bracket was done, literally, when we were potted the last time. But I did predict NC State's amazing run, and they're still on it. But North Carolina lost. And Nick sent me a tweet where it's like, brother, I'm in the top percentile. and then
I
North
was
Carolina lost, and he was fucked.
no. So this was when the Sweet 16, after the Sweet 16 finished, before the Elite Eight, I was 12,000th in the 99.9% ranked bracket. Out of 21 million, by the way, 21 million brackets were filled out on ESPN's Tournament Challenge. I was 12,000th. I had 99.9% accuracy. The only major loss I had experienced was Kentucky. But I think Kentucky just about busted everyone's fucking bracket. So
Facts.
the fact that I had any amount to that effect was incredible. And then the Elite Eight happened. And yeah,
it was the Elite Eight, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was Sweet 16. I lied. It was a Sweet 16. Duke fucked me.
Yeah.
Arizona screwed me over. Purdue, I should have known better. Purdue has been freaking crazy the whole tournament. Freaking Zach Edey douchebag.
So
and then Alabama and finally took the nail out of the coffin, murdering my championship pick in North Carolina.
So what messed me up was I picked GCU over Bama, and GCU won their first round, but they lost to Bama by a lot. I picked North Carolina to win it all. So at that point, I was done. But if you look at my Sweet 16, I had UConn, I had Illinois, Arizona, and UNC Met screwed me. I picked Houston, I picked NC State, I picked Purdue, but I didn't pick Tennessee. I picked Creighton. And I had NC State going all the way to the championship game to lose to North Carolina. But
I had them in the Final Four.
So to me, I think it's going to be I think NC State will make it to the championship. And I'm torn between Bama and UConn because Bama, the thing about them, they play at the fastest pace in college basketball. They shoot so many threes. But see, the thing is, UConn can shoot, but they can also play defense, but they play at their pace. That's UConn.
UConn controls games.
And through their pace.
It doesn't matter what kind of team you are when you play them. You will face, like, the UConn has an answer for every team.
And that's
what makes them so scary. And that's why I at this point I genuinely think it's going to be UConn Purdue.
Okay.
And I would put that as a toss up, honestly. Like, if you're telling me to make betting odds, I'd go like 110.
See, the funny thing is, I think if Purdue makes it, they lose to UConn because I think they rely too much on Zach Edey, and I think UConn has a way to stop that.
UConn can shut down Zach
Edey. That's the thing. And that's why I think Alabama is a very interesting matchup for UConn because they live and die by the three. It's guard heavy, and we're playing fast. If UConn can't get their defensive sets up and they can't play at their tempo, they might lose that game.
Like, good point. That's a good point.
I think legitimately this will be UConn's toughest test of the tournament in Bama. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, Nick. I'm going to say Bama faces NC State. I have NC State winning because unlike Zach Edey, NC State's big man is an offensive dog. He can shoot the ball from everywhere. He doesn't just have to be inside. He has great post moves, and they have guards around him that can actually shoot the ball, unlike Purdue, where it's like we focus so much on
Zach. That Purdue is the Zach Edey show. I agree with you.
Facts. So that's where I'm at. So you're picking UConn to win it all. I'm picking NC State to win it all versus Bama. We'll see what happens. I think it's funny that both of us think that Purdue, they're kind of screwed.
I mean, this is I would say that these four teams are, in fact, the best four teams in the country, probably.
Yeah, facts.
And because of that, I think Purdue has not played any teams as good as the teams that they would be about to play.
Yeah, and look, to me, Tennessee was the toughest matchup they faced. But besides that, I think NC State's had a harder road going through Duke because I think Duke was actually good. I just don't think Duke had an answer to their big man who, by the way, did you see that they are saying that NC State's big man should go to the NFL? Like, NFL
I don't know his name, but I've been seeing
I'm about to get it.
So many posts about this guy and everything. His stock, it's like Spirit talking about how
he didn't even have a stock.
His NBA stock was going down, but his NFL stock was going up,
which is crazy. Like, And I think NBA wise, that guy will be perfectly fine. But his name is DJ Burns. I think NBA wise, he'll have to lose some weight, but he plays like Zach Randolph.
Everybody said Zach Randolph.
Yep. He plays like Zach Randolph. He can control the paint. And the thing about him is he can shoot. The question will be on the NBA level.
Smooth stroke.
Yeah, he does. He has a great jumper.
Smooth stroke.
Dude can shoot threes, mids, and in the post. Offensively, he's sound. The question is defensively, when a guard like Steph Curry puts him in the pick and roll, can he contain and move his feet?
Yeah. And that's going to be something if he can lose weight, build some muscle, build some quickness.
And I think he's more athletic than Edie, where to me, Edie, if you draft Edie, you're going to be in trouble. Like,
I don't really. And this, I mean, he's popular to hate on right now. But
I'm not trying to. It's just the truth.
I think it's for a reason. Like, it comes with a little bit of the way he plays and the sort of
and his height, low key.
And yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's not.
He was born in the wrong era, because if he was in the 90s or the 80s, top first number one draft pick. It's the problem is, and I got to give credit to LeBron James in JJ Redick's podcast. I saw a clip that they released. People like to credit the Warriors for how basketball is played, but I think what LeBron said about what Coach Spoelstra did to get the Heat to winning finals, I think that changed basketball. So he said that Spoelstra went and met with Chip Kelly, and Chip Kelly taught him the spread offense of college football, and he implemented the spread offense to basketball to where big men, the lane, like the paint, from paint to paint, both sides, big men could not run in there. They either had to run in the either corners or trail and stay at the three-point line so LeBron and D-Wade could go to the paint, thus creating spacing, which forced big men to have to shoot. Chris Bosh was instrumental, and I think that is the first evolution. That's the Charmander version of what the Charizard version of Golden State became.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting you say that, because that's the level of basketball that I think evades some of these guys in college.
Because college is stuck on the old ways.
Yeah, college is very much still fundamental basketball, and
that's why Alabama is so deadly, because they're the team that's playing like an NBA team.
Yes, I agree with that.
So it'll be so interesting to see. But I think DJ Burns will end up being the tournament MVP. I think NC State will win. It's either them or UConn for me. I mean, no, them or Alabama, excuse me. Nick, you're picking UConn or NC State?
I'm picking UConn over Purdue.
No, it's UConn over Bama. Oh, so yeah. So you got Purdue beating NC State, going to the championship versus UConn, and you have UConn winning. Okay.
Correct.
Perfect. All right, let's jump to the women's game, where, to me, Nick, the women's NCAA tournament has been better than the men's. The women's have legitimate stars, where we only know Zach Edey, and we just met DJ Burns this tournament.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, I knew Angel Reese, I knew Caitlin Clark, I knew Flo J, I knew Paige Bueckers off of UConn, and I knew Juju off of USC. That group of women is insanely talented. And last night we got the Elite Eight side of the bracket that is, hold on, let me tell you, it is the side.
It was Iowa, LSU, and South Carolina, Oregon State.
South Carolina's on the other side, and I believe South Carolina is going to win and make it to the championship. But this was the interesting side, where it was Paige versus Juju in a rematch of UConn and USC. And then a rematch of Caitlin Clark and
now I'm up to speed.
LSU. Let real quick, I'll talk about the UConn game. So, and then we'll get to LSU. Paige, to me, and how do you say Bueckers? Paige Bueckers is the best women's college basketball player in the country. And I know people will be like, whoa, what about Caitlin Clark?
That's what I was going to say.
And let me tell you why. Caitlin Clark is Steph Curry. Caitlin Clark can shoot the ball from half court in. You got to guard her when she crosses the court. But the thing is, that's Caitlin Clark's, that's her game. That is it.
Yeah.
Paige is not only a playmaker, Paige can shoot the ball from three inside. Paige has a great finishing layup package. She's a great assister. She can rebound the ball. But what differentiates Paige from Caitlin is Paige plays defense.
Caitlin does not play defense.
Zero. Paige last night had 28.6 assists and 10 rebounds, along with a couple of steals. That girl is the overall dog. If Caitlin Clark is Steph Curry, I would say Paige is a mixture of Hornets Chris Paul and Kobe Bryant. Like, she has that Kobe mentality where she can go and get buckets, but
killer instinct.
But she is a legitimate facilitator. That's why I say Hornets Chris Paul, because if you remember, Hornets Chris Paul was not only just a good facilitator, but that guy could score the fucking ball. Like, so
no, he could put it up when he needed to.
Sure. And he plays defense. And that to me is why Paige is overall the best player in the country. And shout out to Juju Watkins. She's a freshman and she's being named with Paige, Angel Reese, and Caitlin, who are all upperclassmen. Juju is so I made this comparison last year. I tweeted again this year. To me, what Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark have done for the women's game of basketball is Magic Johnson and Larry Bird Part 2. It's Magic Johnson and Larry Bird for the women, where in the NBA that nobody cared about the NBA in before Magic and Larry. It was tape delayed. The games weren't live. They almost lost the league. Magic and Larry did a great job in college, and the fans followed them to the pros, and then people started paying attention, and then it just so happened that this guy named Michael Jordan came over and took the baton from Larry and Magic. I think that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese is the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird rivalry. And then I think Juju Watkins from USC will be the Michael Jordan who takes the baton and makes it that much better, because everything I said about Paige, Juju has times 10. Like, Juju is incredible, Nick. She dropped 29 in her first major tournament game against UConn. That girl is insanely good.
Yeah. And I think, based on I have not been as up to date with the women's games.
And that's fair.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I'll say this, and
Paige could be the Isaiah Thomas, where during Magic and Bird, they also had other stars that were great. Facts.
And I'll tell you, so these players, I get what you're saying, and look, the WNBA definitely needs it.
They need it bad, man.
And like, they have not had a ton of good publicity recently.
And also, I think what makes it interesting is women actually support Caitlin and Angel, whereas women weren't. Let's call a spade. Women weren't really paying attention to the WNBA. Now, when these girls go, you'll not only get the male fans, but what they need is the women fans.
Yeah, and that's why I think you're going to see. And honestly, it should elevate the game.
Yeah, definitely.
Ever since
because these women are game changers.
I'm sorry, her name is escaping.
Candace Parker,
whoever just retired.
It was either Diana Taurasi or Sue Bird.
Taurasi. No, it's Taurasi. Ever since Taurasi retired, the WNBA's
felt flat to you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not the biggest basketball guy in the first place, so you really have to have some high quality play to pull me in.
She was the cornerstone of it, Taurasi, and then I would say Candace Parker as well.
And I think another thing
and Parker's old; she's about to retire.
Yeah, and I think another thing that concerns me too is just the level of general play. Like, you got the stars, but then like, what are your role players like? And I feel like the role players in this tournament have been better than the role players in the WNBA for probably the last 5 years, in my opinion.
And look, I know some people get at you. I think the Las Vegas
can get at
Aces.
Me all you want, and there's good basketball being played, but
I think the Aces are exactly what you're talking about. Of like, they have their stars and overall role players, but not everyone's like the Aces. That's why I think when these
that's
women,
why you know about the Aces. Name like 2 other WNBA teams.
I literally the New York Liberty, because their team like the Liberty, Aces, and then I only know about the Los Angeles Sparks because of their history.
There you go.
But those are 3 teams. And I think that when this crop of women go into the WNBA, it will shift the culture. You'll get more stars around the league, and then you'll have the eyeballs.
And there'll be more conversation. Yeah, there's more conversation around these girls too.
Because now you have the Aces
and they've got attitude. They've got like this. They've got personalities.
Swag.
They got swag. Yeah, absolutely.
You got Kelsey Plum, and then my girl from the Aces who went to South Carolina, who is a dog. She's legitimately, arguably the best women's basketball player out right now. Her name is, hold on, she was the MVP. I'm looking at her. Why is she not the top of the roster? That's freaking weird. Google. It's Kelsey Plum, Chelsea. Oh, Asia Wilson. Asia Wilson is the star right now of the WNBA. So not only will you have Asia, you'll have Kelsey, then you'll have Caitlin coming in, you'll have Paige, you'll have Angel Reese, you still got Stewart that plays for the Liberty, you got the 3-point shooter that Sabrina Ayas. You're having a bunch of stars around the league, and now people are going to pay attention, which is great.
Yeah.
Now to the LSU game, I do not like how the media and certain people use that opportunity last night to. And this was the Magic Bird thing where they made it about race, which was
a lot of people outed themselves last night. Man.
And they were happy that LSU lost. They said that these thugs needed to lose. They called them dirty debutantes in the LA Times. What the fuck is a dirty debutante? That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, that was part of that Kim Mulkey hit piece, right? Which
totally no. That was the other one. No,
that was the other one.
Yeah, that was from the LA Times. The Kim Mulkey hit piece didn't really. It told us everything we knew, essentially.
Yeah. I was like,
she basically stepped out in front of it because she didn't know how bad it was going to be. I felt,
right,
and was like, "Let me just say this now in case it's horrible." But it worked out for her because people were expecting the worst, and it was just like, "Oh, we already knew all of this."
Yeah, she's like a very overly competitive coach.
That's super conservative. That doesn't necessarily like her players being lesbian.
Realistically.
We already knew.
What makes that any different from any NFL coach?
Speak on it.
Or honestly, probably a good portion of NBA coaches.
They don't
think that, but
they just don't put their political beliefs out there.
I mean,
and that's why Mark Jackson got fired because Mark Jackson.
Not every NBA coach is Steve Kerr.
Exactly. Not every or Greg
Steve
Popovich.
Kerr will say whatever the hell he wants. Popovich will say whatever the hell he wants.
But Mark Jackson got fired because of that. That's because he said his opinion on the LGBT community.
I think
and he deserved
these people. Yeah, sure. But some of these people, like, they want to coach basketball and not make political commentary.
And they shouldn't. Facts. And
that's my thing. I don't care what side of the aisle you fall on. I don't give a shit what Steve Kerr thinks about politics. I don't give a shit what Mark Jackson gives. I don't care about anybody. Stan Van Gundy.
I just don't want y'all to be hateful. And that's
be a normal, decent human being. I don't give a shit who you voted for. And that's the point. Kim Mulkey, maybe a little bit of a psycho. You have to be a coach.
And you really do. The problem with her is just her stance on outing players and shit. Like, you can't be doing that.
Can't do that.
That shit is not cool.
Yeah, I'm not trying to defend that side of things.
No, I know what you're defending. You're defending the ultra competitive coach side. No, for sure. And last night, I think a lot of the hateful people showed their cards because they were like, "Oh, these players didn't want to stand for the."
Yeah, they went in the locker for the anthem, which,
like, brother,
most basketball teams have been doing that for
this turn. Not only just this tournament, but the past. But on top of that, Nick, Kim Mulkey is one of the most conservative coaches that is in women's basketball. She would not have, unless it was something that she wanted to do, she would not have let her players just not stand for the anthems. Cut that shit out. Yeah. Cut that shit out. That was the players.
In the NBA, maybe players can make that kind of decision.
Not in college.
Not college basketball, much less women's college basketball.
I was about to say, in men's college basketball, you need a coach like Calipari to make that decision. But in women's, it have to be Dawn Staley in South Carolina or UConn with Gino Auriemma, who are more liberal coaches. But with Kim Mulkey, fuck no. So a lot of people outed themselves. It was horrible. Angel Reese.
I put it in my article that I wrote about it. I said, I could see in my mind's eye thousands of racists warming up their Twitter finger over this, and it's frankly disgusting. Think how much funnier it'd be to have someone from Baton Rouge flaming the shit out of those corn-fed ladies from the Midwest versus a white guy in sunglasses and an outrageously curved ball cap calling Angel Reese a thug.
And ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And Angel Reese was crying on her press conference about how mentally it's been tough for her after she won the championship. She got death threats. People were being racist, making fun of how she looked, and she just opened up about that, and everybody was like, "Oh, see what happens when you don't win? I guess the thug can't take it." It's like, bro,
the first thing someone said, the first thing I saw that someone said about it was like, she said "I" when she talked about winning the national championship.
Yes,
motherfucker, you listened to the wrong part of that statement.
That's what you took from
it. To take away from that,
like any person who's won the championship, they say I just want. Like no one got on Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce when they say I want to, but because it's Angel Reese specifically, an outspoken Black woman, people get offended by that. Angel, over here at Bros Who Think and Vagabond Sports, we support you. We stand for you. We uplift you. Keep doing your thing, girl.
Yeah, you shouldn't be treated like shit because you play a sport better than other people.
Or because you're just confident. Like,
yeah,
it's not even because
you choose to have a little swag.
Yeah, like what the fuck?
It's the same thing Acuna's goes through in the MLB. Ronald Acuna has been having this since he's gotten into the MLB. The only reason I say that is because I brought it up is because I just saw a video about this recently about how the shit he went through of like coming from a small town in Venezuela. His whole family's in the MLB, and he wore his hat cocked sideways, which is like a thing that people do as a stylistic choice. He got flamed for it. He almost got fined. He almost got like got smoked in the, and that's a baseball problem. But the point is, at the end of the day, it's a lot of these sports and a lot of these people who like to say they have an opinion on sports just want everybody to be like their favorite player.
Yeah,
they want everybody to be like the status,
the past. Yeah, they don't want anyone to show any type of confidence in themselves or any type of outspokenness that's different than, like you said, their favorite player.
It's the difference in man, NFL isn't the same, but is NFL not the same because the league keeps fucking the rules up, or is NFL not the same because players are soft now,
or because players don't look how you wanted them to look from the 90s.
Why they have all those bands on and
why the quarterback's a little darker and running a little more. Like that's what people say. And
you're right.
It's fucked.
It's messed up. It's messed up.
I'm so proud of Paige for saying after her thing about Paige was like, go back and look at my ESPY speech about how the women's basketball is on the shoulders of a lot of Black women who took a lot of slack, and now they want to elevate people like Caitlin Clark or Paige. And granted, they should be because they're talented, but elevate the Angel Reese, elevate the Juju. Don't just throw them to the wayside because they're African-American women. That's fucked.
Right.
So I am super ecstatic to see Paige versus Caitlin. I'm predicting UConn to win in that matchup, and then we'll see South Carolina versus UConn.
There is a nearly 50% chance, if you just look at pure numerics, that we have twinned championships.
You're right, with NC State and UConn.
NC State and UConn. So if NC State and UConn, each male and female team, get into their respective finals, we could either have UConn winning both, NC State winning both, or split. Both teams get to go home with one of the championships.
Look, I'll say this,
which would be kind of sick. I'm not gonna lie to you.
NC State's women aren't winning, so there's no chance in hell.
True. That's true.
So if I think they can make it, but UConn's
it'd be cool. Look, I'd be cool with UConn winning too.
Let me just say this: if NC State beats South Carolina, that will be the best game they played in their entire season, and I don't know if they could do it back to back because UConn's just as good, but in a different way.
That is correct.
So I predict UConn's women to win, and we already gave our men's. Who are you predicting with the women to win?
Yeah,
are you thinking Caitlin Clark's gonna finish the story?
It's honestly, it's tough, man.
Her teammates aren't good enough. That's just the problem.
I was gonna say it's gonna be South Carolina on the I'll say the left side because I'm looking at the bracket right now. South Carolina on that side. But on the other side of it, man, Iowa, UConn. That's one I almost want to give a toss up.
It's gonna be a damn.
But truthfully, yeah, I think I'm gonna go for it and pick UConn.
You should
have the paired champions. Why? Might as well.
Legitimately, the reason why LSU lost is because Haley Van Lith could not score a fucking basket.
Yeah.
Haley Van Lith choked. Last year, Alexis Morris and Jasmine Carson provided the guard offense. When Caitlin Clark was knocking down threes, they were answering those two women, and those two women guarded Caitlin Clark. Granted, she still had a great game, but they slowed her down. This game, Haley Van Lith could not do shit against Caitlin Clark, and she had 9 points. That's the reason why LSU lost.
Yeah, I think in my article about Iowa beating LSU, I said that the rest of the women's tournament was going to be kind of eh. I want to amend that. I'll make a tweet about it, but I want to amend that to say I think the championship will probably be eh. I think the game between Iowa and UConn is going to be nuts.
Yeah, that's going to probably
be the championship. Whichever team wins that game is just going to win the championship.
Okay. And look at Caitlin scored 41 points and had 12 assists. She had to have 41 points for them to win. She's not doing that against UConn.
Angel Reese had 39 points in that game.
Angel ball. Oh, well, Angel Reese, she had 17 and 20 of rebounds. She had 17 points and 20 rebounds.
Oh, I was right. Okay.
Yeah, she had 39 total.
39 total. Yeah.
Because she had 4 assists too. Angel Reese was incredible, man.
Yeah, and I mean her
and FloJ played great too. FloJ had her
resume. Her resume going into the WNBA, NCAA champ.
I think she can stay one more year.
SEC Player of the Year, 3 times. Yeah, she can.
Yeah, and
I why would she?
Well, she makes more money.
Truthfully, yeah.
Okay, she makes more money. Yeah, I would stay if I'm Angel Reese. I'm staying one more year, getting as much money as I can.
Get Mulkey. Try to get Mulkey one more.
And get yourself one more, and then going into the WNBA with her, Caitlin, and Paige, y'all can raise the pay grade because people are watching y'all.
That's what I was gonna say.
But you got to make as much money as you can. Now, the interesting thing is, does Caitlin Clark? Because I think Ice Cube is offering her more than the WNBA could. Ice Cube is offering her between 5 to 10 million to play. If I'm Caitlin Clark, I go and make that money for like a year or two, wait for Paige and Angel to go into the league, and then dominate the men, and then take that viewership that you create there, bring it to the WNBA with these other 2 amazing college players, and then boom, now you can start getting the WNBA some proper viewers and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think that'd be nothing but good for the sport. And
bro, if she goes and dominates those old NBA players, that would be crazy. Insane. Yeah. Like, absolutely insane. So I hope it happens. But we gave our picks for men's and women's college basketball. Nick, really quickly, do you have any Saints thoughts of anything that's been going on recently before we get into our interview?
Yeah. So before we talk to Chris, I just wanted to know, like, in this quiet sort of in between the free agency and the draft, I've been thinking a lot. Now, the Saints are. I'm going to say they're going to hurt me, but they're not. They're not going to hurt me this year because I don't have basically any expectations.
That's what me and Chris were saying. Legit 0. Like,
which is kind of a good place to be. Is
they're
like
the 3rd best team in the South. Legit.
Yeah. It's a good feeling to have, kind of, because you don't have to really worry about, man, like, are we going to get into the play? Like, I don't think we're going to get into the playoffs. I don't care really. I can watch them with like minimal expectations, and I'm still gonna freak out when they lose, and I'm still gonna be overjoyed when they win, and I'm still gonna come on here on a Monday after they win on a Sunday and be like, this is the best team in the world, and they're gonna win every Super Bowl for the next 5 years. That's fine. I want you to know now, before that happens in the future.
I know it's gonna happen.
And I'm bullshitting it. I don't actually believe it.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Triple B, if you are from the Bros Who Think Network and didn't come from the radio station, Nick is a delusional Saints fan when it comes to he will. Let me tell you, I'm gonna have to call a spade because this man, if the Saints win games, even though we know they're bad, he's gonna come and say, "Oh, playoffs, we're winning it all, baby."
I will come in every single week. Week 1, they'll win, and I'll come in and I'll be like, "Look, so if we just win these games, we get a 1st round bye and we get home field."
He will, and that's why I want the Saints to lose, because if they lose, we can get rid of Dennis Allen. Mike Vrabel still available as a coach. Belichick, there's a lot of good coaches available, but also, if they lose, I think Gail Benson, and we talk about this with Chris, and we'll get into this in a little bit, Gail Benson has to legitimately consider getting rid of Mickey Loomis. Yeah. It's time. It's fucking time. Dude has not hit on a draft pick.
The concerning thing,
2016.
The concerning thing with that, though, is
or the 2017 draft, whatever.
Once that puts us into a full rebuild,
I'm okay with that. We need it.
Yeah, but then that could be another 10, 15 years. Like bad football. I don't know if my heart can handle it.
But I'll say this: I think based on how these young quarterbacks are coming out gifted, and if you get the right coach and the right quarterback, rebuilds happen a lot faster. I think it just depends on getting the right people in the building.
I will say this.
Or we end up like the Bears.
The Saints have, that's my problem. I'd much rather not have that problem.
Or we could be Jacksonville, who, got the right coach, lucked up getting Trevor, and was able to rebuild fat. Well, or I'll say Houston. Houston was losing.
Yeah, well, that's all they're going to depend on if CJ Stroud gets the sophomore scaries.
Well, and
if CJ Stroud can keep, listen, I would think if I had to put money on a dark horse this year,
it's Houston.
It's Houston every single day.
Because they made great free agent picks.
I need to go check what their
yeah, you should.
Right
Not
now.
only did they make great free agent picks, but they have great draft stuff coming up. Houston is going to be insane. And while Nick's looking this up, speaking of, we will be making a video about Nick's going to be the betting genius, and I'm going to come in as the fan that doesn't know anything about betting, and I'm going to ask him questions about betting to get you guys ready for the NFL season and for the end of the NBA, because we will start doing betting segments and betting content on this show. So be on the lookout for that. You got the odds, and this will be the final thing we do before we go to Chris.
Hold on, let me do it on my phone because it's not working on my computer.
Okay. Well, while he's pulling this up, we'll
Chris Rosvoglou.
Yeah, we'll say it after the break. But without further ado, if you are a Saints fan, here it is. Let's get into our conversation with.
He's a G.
Chris Rosvoglou. Hello, Triple B Nation, and we have a special guest for this episode. Like I told y'all, we're building this show up. You're going to get episodes from me and Nick during the week, but also you're going to get special interviews with different people from around the sporting world. And this guy is my Saints guy. He rode with me through both my radio show and my radio show with Dave Schultz. He's been my guy from jump, and I'm so happy to have him back on the show. We got my man, Chris Rosvoglou, on the program today. Chris, this is where they'll have applause in the background, but we got him, writer for The Spun by SI Now. He hosts the Saints podcast for Boot Crew Media. He is one of, if not in my opinion, actually I'm not gonna say one of, in my opinion, he's the best person covering the Saints, and that's why we have him on the show. How you doing today, Chris, man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk with you. It's been a while, so I'm pumped up.
It's been a minute, man. I had to get everything rebooted, reloaded, but we are here. And speaking of, it's been a minute. I have not seen your new setup until today, and I see you got my Diva trainees in the background. Lisan Al Gaib. How did you feel? Because now that this is not the radio, for those listening who used to listen to the radio show, or for those that are just from the podcast network, or if you're just joining in, you may not know, Chris is a big movie fan. And every time I used to bring him on my show, I would always ask him about movies just for a little bit. But today we can chat a little longer because it's a podcast. So how do you feel about Dune? And how are you? Oh, well, I asked the next one after. Yeah, how you feel about Dune?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I went on that opening Thursday. I was actually frustrated because I didn't check my phone for my AMC app until I believe that Saturday before, and I didn't realize one showing near me, but it was already booked. I'm like, I could have gone that Sunday for the fan event. So I went that Thursday, absolutely loved it. Then I went the following Tuesday, loved it. Went the following Monday, loved it. And I will go one more time. And everyone keeps going, it's like, how many times do you have to see it? And I'm like, if I love a movie, I could see it multiple times.
Exactly.
And this one's perfect. Like, I like, Lyn, I don't know about you, but like, I saw Logan in theaters 3 times, and that's a depressing movie. And at times it could be a little slow. So I'm like, I could get through this. Plus, I know it's 2 hours, 45 minutes, but the third time I watched it, all of a sudden I look at my watch and there's like 45 minutes left. I'm like, no, where all the time goes?
When you love a movie, to your point, it doesn't matter how many times you see it because you love it, and that's why we get along so well. We just vibe on that. Like you said, for Logan, you saw it 3 times. I only saw that one once, but I relate. I saw the Batman 3 times in theaters, and then I've watched it 3 times since it's come on Netflix. My girlfriend is like, do you not get sick of that movie? I was like, no, I like it. And like Dune, the second one, I saw twice. Once, like you said, on that Thursday, and then I did it the following Friday. But, I love... Man, Timothy, I know he said he doesn't want to do superhero movies, but I could see him as Dick Grayson Nightwing so easily, Chris. And I am so excited for what Warner Brothers is doing, because now he is their... They used to have Leo Santa first look deal. Well, now they have him, and he's their guy going forward. Him and Austin Butler showed in that movie that they are the future of acting, legitimately.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned the Warner Bros. Thing. So I kid you not, earlier today, I sent that news thing about him having the deal with Warner Bros., like that first look deal. And I sent it to my girlfriend, and she knows that I'm a big Nightwing fan. And I go, I'm like, the chances of him playing Nightwing, they go up a little bit, just a little bit. Like, I don't know.
They went up look. I know Leo's his mentor, and Leo's like, no hard drugs and no superhero movies. But the thing is, he's a big Christian Bale fan. He is a big fan of auteurism, like blockbuster directors. And if the Batman role, because he always said, like, I love The Dark Knight. He said he loved Matt Reeves' thing. If we get a Batman like that, not necessarily, because I know it's going to be more comic booky, but if we get a serious director for Brave and the Bold, the chances of him being Nightwing went up even more so from what it is, because it's already went up, like you said, for the Warner's deal. Let me ask you, how are you feeling about Marvel? Because for people that don't know, Chris is also a big Marvel guy, Marvel and Star Wars. I think, Chris, Dune revolutionized sci-fi for me. I think it's been the best sci-fi movie of the 2000s, and I saw the Alien Covenant trailer after, and I was like, damn, it just don't hit the same because this doesn't feel fresh. Like the spaceships and everything felt continuation, because post-Dune, it's like, oh, all of this stuff is times 10. So when I saw the Acolyte, I was like, that's how you separate yourself. You focus in on what makes Star Wars special, and that's the Jedi and the Force. I am more excited for what Star Wars has to offer than Marvel. Where are you at with that?
I'm still, and it's weird because I've tried very hard to like break out of this kind of rut that I'm in. But when it comes to Star Wars lately, I've been like so out of it. But to your point though, when you see movies like Doom Part 2, and obviously, I was thinking about it yesterday about 2024 movies as a whole. And I think to show how much it's changed, if you asked me like a couple years ago, like what would be the top movies that I want to watch this year, and now that Doom Part 2's, it's been out, we've seen it, like what would be my most anticipated? I think like a couple years ago, I'd be like, oh, it had to be Deadpool 3. And I was making a list the other day and just like literally jotting down like on my calendar, so I know like keep space to go see these movies if I have time. It wasn't even in my top 5. Like I'm excited for Furiosa. I'm excited for the new Planet of the Apes. I'm excited for even like Twisters. I'm excited for movies like that. So I was looking, I'm like, okay, so Marvel's for me has fallen off drastically.
Yeah, it has.
I see the teaser for the Penguin show. I'm like, that looks great. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't find the Acolyte trailer that appealing to me because I've been out of the Star Wars loop. But, the end of the trailer, I see about 15 lightsabers get set off. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll watch
that. And see, that last part of the trailer is what sold it, because, like, I have the movie podcast, so I know it's going to be outside of the outside of the Skywalker timeline. It's going to be early in the Jedi stuff. So I'm like, okay, if there's any time for us to get live action, how Jedis are supposed to be, it's now. And when all those lightsabers lit up, I was like, oh, this is what Attack of the Clones did wrong. And we're finally going to get animated Star Wars, comic Star Wars come to life. So that's what I'm excited for. But to your point, yeah, Marvel's falling off for me. Like, I'm not excited for any of the things this year from them. I'm going to watch them, but excitement level's low. Like you said, the Penguin's going to be hype this upcoming year. Next year, we get Superman Legacy on the DC world starting, so I'm ecstatic. I guess the final thing before we get to the Saints, I'm sorry, Saints fans, I had to ask him about these movies. The final thing I got for you, you said you had your 5 most anticipated movies. Give them to me. I want to know, because Gladiator 2 is my number 1 post-Dune Part 2.
So that was in my top 5. Let me pull up the message because I was putting it yesterday in my phone. So the ones that I had for me, I had Furiosa 1, and honestly, that's more so recency bias because I actually didn't watch the Mad Max till last year.
Oh, you're into it hype now. Yeah.
So I'm in. Like I didn't watch Mad Max Fury Road till I believe last November. So like it's still fresh in my brain. Where I'm like, oh my god, this thing was incredible. So that's my 1 right now. Number 2 is a little bit of a different one. I'm very excited for Hitman because I love Linklater, and I think Glenn Powell's a star. So, like, I'm excited for that one. I think they said it's going on Netflix, but if they drop it in theaters like
I'm going to watch it. Same.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do that. I have Gladiator 2 in my 3 spot. Then I switched this last minute because I did not expect to have this in my top 5 at all. But the Alien Romulus teaser that came out like last week or 2, oh my, I thought that looked fantastic.
Okay. So, I know I poo-pooed on it about the sci-fi part, but the sci-fi part isn't what has me interested in that movie. It's the horror elements. Yes. I was like, oh, they're finally going back to Ridley's initial vision, which was a horror film, because Cameron made it a blockbuster. It's like, oh, and if anybody can do it, it's Don't Breathe Fede Alvarez. Like, what? Let's go. But my bad for cutting you off. I just had to clarify.
No, I agree with you. And actually, funny enough, after that came out, I went to go watch Alien and Aliens, and then I'm like, I know people love Aliens. I'm not saying Aliens is a bad movie. It's not. It's a very good movie. But it's so different from the first one. I missed the horror aspect. So I'm watching it. So that got me hyped. And then my 5th one, I guess you could do a toss up. I have right now in that spot, I have Civil War just because I really like Garland and I think he's so good. But like, if I were to be a little bit more on the fun side and just let loose a little bit, I am excited to see Fall Guy just because I am a big Ryan Gosling fan. And I also think it gives me kind of those Bullet Train vibes where it might not be a great movie, like from a thematic standpoint, but I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. So those are kind of like the 5/6 that I'm definitely interested in.
Oh, we are on the same page. And when Civil War comes out, I'm gonna have to talk to you about it because I'm a big Jesse Plemons guy, and it looks like this is gonna be his thing. So excited for that. Hell yeah, glad to talk some movies with Chris. But now, Saints fans, this is what you were ready for. All right, Chris, the Triple B Nation, myself and Nick have been talking about the Saints. Give me initial thoughts of Saints offseason so far. Like, just let's break the ice. How do you think they've done, and what would you grade it? A through F.
Yeah, I mean, grade wise, it's interesting. I don't know what I can give them that's really, too generous. I think if I was being, fair, I would say maybe anywhere from a C to like a C minus. And it's not that I'm like so disappointed in them. They just really haven't done enough, right? Like they added Chase Young, but he's coming off that neck injury. So we don't know what he's going to look like in September. So if he was healthy and ready to go, I'd probably give him like a C plus because I think he'd fix their pass rush a decent bit, but he's not. So right now, the only guy you've really added is Willie Gay, who, gives you good depth. And I like the idea of him competing with Pete Werner, but that's one move. They didn't really lose anyone drastic for my liking, but the big problem for this team is, and I'm sure, it's a big story this week, so I'm sure we'll talk to it at some point, is the Ryan Ramczyk thing. But I'll put that to the side for just a second. When I look at this team, they decided they weren't going to be aggressive this offseason, and I actually think in the long run, it's the right move. But in the short term, by them not being so aggressive, because they could have restructured a couple more contracts to free up some space and maybe be a player in free agency. By not doing that, in the long term, I promise Saints fans, I think it'll pay off because they'll finally get out of this cap hell. And I know it's not cap hell for Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley, but it's got to be annoying every year that you got to restructure so many contracts. So that will be fixed in the long term. In the short term, though, how can I give them a good grade when they really didn't add anything? And I still think they have holes at offensive tackle, holes at they got to get better at tight end, could add another receiver, got to get better at safety, got to get better at D-line, both interior and exterior. So there's a lot of holes on this team. I don't think this is a horrible team by any means, but when I saw DraftKings have them at 7.5 at the win total, I'm like, that sounds about right. Because right now they look like a 7-10, 8-9 team to me. So I'd go C minus right now for the grade.
And see, my thing, I'm glad you brought up the short-term, long-term conversation, because before we get to Ramczyk, I want to touch on this. To me, it's like, okay, if you're going to do this, then that says that to me, Chris, at least this is how I view it, it says you don't have faith in the team that's currently constructed. You don't have faith in Derek Carr. So what was all of this for? Like, why are we just saying, okay, 7-10? Why not cut bait and try to? Yes, I know we're going to be bad, but I would rather Chris be bad and then get a chance to get a young quarterback instead of staying in this 7-10, 8-9 mediocre lane. How can we get better like that?
No, absolutely. So I agree with you. By them doing this, it pretty much said, okay, whatever we did last year, we were
didn't
wrong.
work. Yeah.
Like we went in on Carr, and because you went in on Carr and the contract they gave him, because everyone got upset when they restructured, and I understand it because by restructuring it, it means they're on the hook for 2 more years as opposed to this being his final season. Because had they just left the contract untouched, they could cut Carr after this season and then they'll be fine. Like they could wash their hands clean, not to worry about it. But they set up that contract knowing they would have to restructure it. And the fact that they did restructure, but everything else pretty much kind of stayed the same, and they haven't gotten better. They haven't added any players. They're going to have less experience on this roster. I think they're pretty much going into this year saying this: either Dennis Allen's going to make it work with the least talented roster he's had so far, which is most likely doubtful, or
he's done.
He's done. Yeah. But then if he's done, it goes to your point where it's like, then why did you need to add an $150 million quarterback? Because that actually hurts your cap situation a decent bit. And to your point, we're just delaying the inevitable about drafting a quarterback, which also stinks because this year we're talking about 4. You might get 1, 2, 3, and 4 be a quarterback this year with the way it's going. And even guys like Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., like there's 6 quarterbacks I'll be taking in the top 40. Like, when does that ever happen? It's not that often. And I think for me right now, that it is a little concerning, but I do agree with you. It shows that they're kind of contradicting what they did in the past. But you know what? I'd rather them be realistic at this point and accept the mistake than continue to double down when it's not working. So that's like the optimistic way of looking at it, but you're 1000% correct. I think it's pretty clear. They look back and go,
we
right.
messed up. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, to me, to your point, I'm glad you said that because it's like, okay, Dennis, if you don't get it done now, you're gone. I feel like this was Mickey saving his job instead of saying, I'm going to spend more money. No, I have a scapegoat. So Mickey has a scapegoat with Dennis Allen this year. And then next year, if it's a new coach, it's like, okay, Derek Carr's the scapegoat. And then to your point, 2 years later, you can get off of him. And then Mickey's like, okay, Gail, we've gotten out of that. Now I can rebuild. Let me rebuild the right way. It feels almost as if he made the moves and they lose. Gail's like, oh, what are you doing? This is a failure. But instead, now he has multiple years where he can out scapegoat people to save his job. And it's like, bro, we can't win that way. Like, just call it a spade a spade.
No, you can't. And I don't know, like the way I view it, I think Mickey Loomis probably has like one of the most secure jobs in the NFL, which I think is a little ridiculous because I think it's supposed to be about results. And
it's scary, man.
It's very scary. And I was thinking about it yesterday because I was doing a podcast about Ramczyk, and I'm sitting there going like, we're sitting here having a conversation about how they don't have a single offensive tackle they could trust. But I'm like, didn't your GM 2 years ago draft an offensive tackle? Like, so 2 years, the 19th pick just can't play. Like, he can't see the field. He's not good enough. And we don't even know because Ramczyk's really only played a couple of games. And granted, he's gotten his butt kicked in those games. Like, technically, you're supposed to get better with reps, and he just doesn't get those reps. So for me, I do agree. It's almost like, all right, Loomis knows the pressure's hot, and there's nothing that will kind of cool down the seat than when January comes, he says Dennis Allen's been relieved of his job. And fans are going to be happy and say, hallelujah, he's gone.
But we don't realize that's he's the problem behind it. Because to your point, he drafted Penning. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, you made the mistake on Penning. You may be a cap wizard, and you may be able to be a great move maker, but I haven't seen him be a good recognizer of talent. Like I'm starting to think that was Peyton who pushed for Kamara, who pushed for Ramczyk, who pushed for Lattimore. Because post Peyton, Loomis's picks have not hit.
No, they haven't. And I think the thing about the Saints is, as good as the 2017 draft was, and it was like an all-timer, it's like, since they have not been very consistent, and I'd actually argue their best draft class since then was the one where they didn't have any picks and they got Gardner Johnson and Eric McCoy.
Yes.
And obviously you got rid of Gardner Johnson and obviously that hurt, but you got two like studs during that year when you didn't expect it. But 2017 almost skews the opinion where it's like, well, he drafted this, he drafted that. And I know the networks will bring it up when, you know, the Saints are on the clock and talk about the good work. But like, for all those hits they had, they literally wasted so many. Like, as good as 2017 was, 2018 was a waste because you drafted Davenport, that didn't work. You drafted Traquan, that didn't work. I was talking about offensive linemen the other day, and I looked at it and I looked at Rick Leonard. I'm like, I don't even know where Rick Leonard is anymore. Like, I don't know what he's up to.
I forgot about that name.
Yeah, so it's 2018.
Peyton Turner. You can look at Penning. You can go back and see everything post 17 has just been a downward spiral in terms of talent evaluation. So with that being said, how do you feel about us going into this draft with the Ramczyk problems? To me, Chris, his knees are shot. You got to draft a lineman. But if you do, it still doesn't solve the problem of the other side.
Yeah, no. And now the Ramczyk thing for me, it didn't change my opinion of like, oh, now you have to draft an offensive tackle, because that was my opinion before that news came out. Now my question for Saints fans is this: do you draft two offensive tackles?
I was about to say back to back.
Is it 14 and 45? And
you have to.
You got to get at least 14. I think you at least got to get someone in there, whether it's like Fuaga from Oregon State, maybe it's Fashanu from Penn State, whoever it may be. I'm not really picky about it because
there's a bunch of good ones right there.
There's a bunch of good ones. And the older I get, the more I'm like, we just don't know. It's a guessing game. Like, you hope that the guy pans out, but we really don't know till he plays on Sundays. So
we thought Penning, I remember talking to you, we thought Penning with the aggression and everything that he was taught, that dude turned out to be a complete 180 of what everyone thought of him.
Yeah, and even then, like, even if you temper the expectations of Penning, if you told me we're going into year 3 and there's a very good chance they don't want him sniffing the field, I'd be like, all right, you're kidding me. Like, that's not going to happen. No. But here we are, and my question for the Saints is going to be this. We know they're going to draft an offensive lineman now. If you whiff again, when do we have the conversation about how you stink at drafting in the trenches? And that's the big problem, right? Like, I know everyone loves to talk about the cap. They've whiffed on Davenport. They've whiffed on Peyton Turner. So far, and I don't want to, write the kid off yet, but Foskey did nothing last year. That's a second-round pick from Notre Dame that you kind of wasted. I know Ruiz got that second.
I was about to say Cesar Ruiz is meh.
That's what he is. He's mediocre at best.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. So, you don't have that there. How many more picks in the trenches can you waste? Because right now the conversation is we don't think Trevor Penning can play. If you whiff on this pick at 14, the conversation shifts to you can't draft offensive linemen. And that's a bigger problem.
It's huge because honestly, I would love for us at 45 to maybe take Brian Thomas Jr., but we can't do that because both sides of the trenches are just piss poor. Let's call a spade a spade. And to your point, that's kind of what they have to focus on. Are you worried going into the season? Let's say they do draft one and they don't draft the other. Are you confident in Ramczyk just drafting one, or is it like, no, you have to do the two, or you have to get at least another one, maybe in the third, somewhere in this draft class, you have to have 2 tackles. Is that what you're doing, or are you saying I'm a believer in Ramczyk or Penning?
I think the way I'm doing it is this: if you're not going 14 and 45 as tackles, one of them obviously has to be a tackle, probably 14. So let's say 14 is the offensive tackle. I think you add, if you don't want to add one at 45, because to your point, there's a lot of really nice wide receivers in this class. I'd love to see them add one. Yeah, you do. Like, I love Olave and Shaheed, but I think it's better to have too many weapons than not to have enough. And then all of a sudden one goes down and we're sitting there going, well, crap, here we are. Like,
and Shaheed fits better as like a slot, like speedster. He's not a true number 2 in my opinion.
Not yet, at least. I think it would be a big jump. Like, I think the kid is really, really good, but there's got to be a jump for him to get there.
Same with A.T. Perry. It's like people are like, oh, A.T. Perry can slide in. It's like, he's young, man.
We don't know. Like, he had a really fun 4-game stretch in the season, but we'd never know. So I'd love to see them add a wide receiver. So my plan for them would be this: you get one at 14. You want to draft a guy because they have a bunch of 5th-round picks. Swing for one. 5th-round picks are 5th-round picks. I don't expect the Saints to hit on them. So take another chance there. Who knows? Maybe one pans out. And then here's the other factor to it. Just go bring back Pete. He's still a free agent at this point. At least if you bring him back, there's one guy that you can be
kind of confident in.
Yeah. And he had a really good 2023 season. And honestly, it's kind of funny how that worked out, because throughout his career, Saints fans have been dying for him to leave. And now that he's a free agent, they're like,
we need him.
You want to come back? So that would be my plan, because at least you have 2 tackles, you have 14, and then Pete. Because I'm going to be honest with you, Lyn, I don't think Ramczyk plays this year, because it's all about kind of reading between the lines. So DA says he's not recovering well. Nick Underhill reports he's not recovering well. And then Ian Rappaport kind of comes over the top and goes, Saints are worried about Ramczyk's status for the entire season. I'm like, well, that's right. I'm reading between the lines. He's not playing this year, is the way I thought. Now, maybe he progresses well, but I kind of think he's played his last down in the NFL.
We have to go with that. We have to, as Saints fans, people in the media, you have to just go with the idea of he's not playing, because if he does, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's good, but you have to prepare for the worst case scenario in this, because look, Chris, last year when I saw him, as someone who has been around offensive linemen, been around people with knee problems, his knees are shot, bro. He just does not look the same at all.
And I described his knee, and it stinks to say,
because sucks, because he was a Saints Hall of Famer by far.
He was one of those guys, perennial All-Pro every year. Is he healthy? Cool, All-Pro, whether it's first team or second team. But that knee injury, it's not like a guy shreds his knee, he gets reconstructive surgery, and he's fine. It's pretty much like a ticking time bomb where, like, that thing just continues to deteriorate. So you're never getting better. You might get, like, temporary relief for a second, but then the minute he's out there, it's just going to get worse. And my question for the Saints is this: they knew this is what his knee was like. When I hear Dennis Allen talk about him and how it's not progressing, I'm worried. Did they think that he was going to be perfectly okay? And now they're like, oh, well, now we got to reassess.
Now we're screwed.
Right?
Again, back to what we were talking about. Just analysis is horrible, bro. Whether that's the GM, the coach, or the doctors, there is a lack of understanding somewhere in between the chain of command. And at some point, Miss Benson's going to have to say, look, I know I trust y'all, but I have to put my foot down and change this ship, like she did with basketball. Basketball, she gutted everything, and we are seeing the results of hiring competent people. Finally, maybe it's time to do the same on the Saints side.
I don't think it's maybe. I think it's
yeah, facts. I'm trying to be nice.
No, you are, and you're doing the right thing. And I've said this year, like, I'm trying to be optimistic in terms of, like, I was
be honest.
Yeah, I was so negative this past season, and I think almost to a detriment where, like, a lot of people like Chris, like, just if something good happens, you could be happy. And I'm like, okay, you know what? People are right about that. But the way I look at this year is, like, this is not a very good football team. And even though I'm very eager for them to make changes, and if it doesn't go well, they'll make those changes, I'm also going to be like, well, we just wasted a year because we knew where it was going this way. And that's how it feels. Like, even this is where they're at. If they fix the O-line in the draft, which I would love that. I want them to fix the O-line. We still got to talk about how if Chase Young is not ready, that D-line is going to get destroyed at times. So you're supposed to be a team that plays complementary football, that has a defensive-minded coach, and there's a very good chance that they could get destroyed in the trenches on the defensive side. Where's the equation to winning? Like, I just don't see it.
And we haven't even mentioned this. If you don't fix the trenches, okay, your secondary, what happens with Lattimore? Like, where are we at with that? Is he coming back happy and playing and we have one of the better secondaries, or is it just about to implode?
I think he comes back for one reason. I think the Saints looked at the trade market and goes, well, if we trade him for a third or a fourth round pick, first off, Saints fans are going to be livid, but also like, it's not worth trading him because it's not getting rid of him relieves so much cap space. Like, there's still dead cap.
It's not like Michael Thomas. Yeah.
It's not one of those moves that all of a sudden the Saints freed up the well and they're good to go and they could spend like maniacs. Like, you would have to get rid of, in my opinion, their best player when healthy. And if you do that, you'd like late first, early second. And the fact that they're not going to get that because when Carlton Davis got traded, I said, fine, he's not playing his best football right now. But L'Jarius Sneed just won a Super Bowl again.
Third round pick.
And you get a third round pick. And I believe it's like next year's third or whatever. And I'm like, is that what you want for Lattimore? Like, I don't see how that fixes the team. And they got to wait until after June to trade him anyway. So I think you stick around with him.
You got to.
Hope to God he plays 17 games because to our point, the defensive line is not good enough. So you're going to need Lattimore, Adebo, Delonte Taylor locking things up because that's your best bet of beating opposing offenses.
Facts. And so we talked about that the defensive side. We talked about the O-line. To me, Chris, I don't think we have enough to compete with the revamped NFC South. Let me call a spade a spade. I think the Bucs, and this is because I don't believe in Kirk Cousins, but I think the Bucs will be the best team in this division with the Falcons right behind them. I think both of those teams can make the playoffs, and I don't think the Saints have a shot against those two teams. How do you feel about the Bucs and the Falcons compared to the Saints and what the Falcons and Bucs have done this offseason?
Yeah, look, I think they're all, I don't want to say neck and neck, all three of them, because I don't think that's true. I do think there is a drop.
I think there's a gap. Yeah.
Yeah, there definitely is. I think, though, when I look at the Saints, it's like, what football team are we getting? Mm-hmm. And it all comes down to the way you measure the last 4 or 5 games of the season. What do you think it was fool's gold, which I think it kind of was, where the Saints just played bad teams and caught on fire in terms of their standards and they played their best football. So I don't expect them to be that type of team. But I'll say it comes down to Derek Carr because Derek Carr, for me, the first 10 games, I was looking at the numbers, like, he was bad. Like, he was just not living up to contract. He was a bad quarterback. He had 10 touchdown passes through the first 10 games. Like, that's not what the Saints paid him for. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to give him credit. Last 5 games of the season, dude was excellent. And you know what? If I'm going to be loud with the criticism, I should be loud with the praise.
True.
But he has to play that well. And if he's not, and he looks like the way he looked in the beginning of the season, you could put a bow in it. They're not making the playoffs because as much as this team wants to pride themselves on defense, they need good quarterback play. And that's part of the reason why the Buccaneers made the playoffs. Baker Mayfield was the best quarterback in the NFC South last year. So that they made it. And you know what? Funny enough, they had the cheapest contract with them out of all those guys. So I would say right now, you give the Bucs their props because they are the defending champions. The Falcons, I'm curious to see. I got to see about Raheem Morris, how he does in this kind of second chance for him.
But Kirk has these weapons now, and it's like,
he does. But even with Kirk, like, everyone keeps going, I want to see how he looks off the Achilles injury. I'm like, he's not going to be running anyway. Kirk was never running. So
yeah, thanks.
The dude's going to be fine. And my question really is just coaching, because I think Kirk Cousins, to your point with those weapons, they were in the division race with Desmond Ridder. And no matter how terrible you may feel about Derek Carr at times, for like the most negative Derek Carr fan, whoever be out there,
Kirk Cousins better than him.
Better than him. And if we're comparing Desmond Ridder and Kirk Cousins, oh my good, like, it is nuts, the gap between those guys. So yeah, I kind of think it's like Bucs, Falcons, Saints, Panthers. Funny enough, the gap between the Saints and the first two, and then
there's a gap between
Saints and Panthers is huge.
Hey, look, at least we're not Panthers fans where you traded a top pick to get a guy who, you know, just didn't turn out to be the guy. Like, and maybe Bryce can turn it around. Hopefully he does. But as Panthers fans, I would be livid and scared because you had CJ Stroud right there. And turns out that guy's a star. And it's like, damn, what's up with Bryce? But all right, let me ask you, because to be positive, like you said, Derek Carr had the best 5 games last season towards the end. You go and get a new offensive coordinator, and I guess this will be our final stuff before we finish up. How do you, and to end on a positive note, how do you feel about the new guy they brought in, and what can he do to bring out the best of Derek Carr?
Yeah, well, I love the idea of bringing in Clint Kubiak for a plethora of reasons. One, I think the Saints had to get more innovative on offense. Like, we were watching this team and we're like, they are running an old offense. Like the 2006, 2007 stuff, like that worked back then. It's not working now. So you bring in a guy who, in terms of his family lineage, they run the football well. They know how to utilize play action. They know how to get the ball out quick. And they really, really prioritize getting the ball to playmakers who make plays after the catch. And I think that's why when we were talking about the Saints getting a receiver, why I'd love to see them get one in the draft, because I'd love to see them get a guy who Kubiak sees as that kind of, I don't want to say Deebo Samuel, but that type of player that like he will make plays after contact, after the catch, and make life easier for Derek Carr, because not everything has to be a 40-yard throw. He could throw for 10 and the guy take it for an extra 30. It all counts the same. So
he comes from a system of game man, like we saw what Brock Purdy did. Yeah,
and Kubiak will make the offense just a lot simpler for Derek Carr. And I think that's a good thing, because when the Saints signed Derek Carr, I thought, okay, you know what? He's going to be able to operate this offense, kind of have freedom the way Drew did. And the more I watch Derek Carr, the more I'm like, he's just not that dude. It doesn't mean he's not talented, because he has a really good arm, but like
just different skill set.
Yeah, it's not like upstairs. It's not the same way it is for Drew, the way Drew would slice and dice. So I think he's going to make things easier for people. And if you want like the best encouragement I could give is obviously Brock Purdy was an MVP candidate this past season. And then if you go back to 2021, when Kubiak was an offensive coordinator for the Vikings, Kirk Cousins had 33 touchdowns and 7 picks. And I don't think the skill gap is like that big between Carr and Cousins. Like I think there's similarities. So he gets the best out of quarterbacks. I think that's good news for Derek Carr. I also think that's good news for guys like Chris Olave, because they'll find mismatches to take advantage. I don't think Pete Carmichael did that enough.
Not at all. That was something we complained about a lot. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the show. Like I said, we will have you back on throughout the summer leading into the season. Tell the people where they can follow you at on social media to see all of your amazing content.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So people can check me out on X at Rosvoglou Report, ROSVOGLOU Reports. Still feels weird saying X. You can check out the podcast Straight Up Saints. You also check out the account on Instagram, on TikTok, also just at Straight Up Saints. And then on YouTube for Boo Crew Media, that's where all the podcasts go.
Hell yeah. Make sure y'all go follow Chris. Make sure you check out his show, Straight Up Saints podcast, and all of his amazing content. Until next time, Chris, take it easy, brother, and we'll talk again soon. Want to say thank you to Chris for coming on the show. That is our guy. And look, I'm so happy he was honest.
I love that dude.
He was honest about Mickey Loomis, because it's true, man. That guy hasn't hit since the Kamara Ramczyk draft. And it's like, he messed up on Davenport. He messed up on Peyton Turner. So you're going to fix it with Chase Young, who's injured with his neck. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, like the only thing I think was we still have some.
And then Penning was a bust.
I think we still have a little bit of juice. I still think we have a little bit of juice, and I might be crazy for this. But I think we have a little bit of juice with Brian Brzee. I like him.
Oh, I do too. I think Brzee will be good. But like Penning, we're gonna have to draft a lineman to replace him. And then on top of that, Ramczyk is done. His knees are shot. It's over.
Yeah, that made me almost cry. That almost made me cry. Dude, I am having such a struggle fighting.
Because he would have. Yeah, it's okay. You know, we'll have it for the.
No, I want him.
Okay, well then go ahead and see if you can get it. But I'll say this. With Ramczyk,
they don't want degenerates like me
betting on the futures
now. Yeah,
I think Ramczyk would have been a Hall of Famer.
Houston Texans are plus 2,000.
Oh, take that. Take them odds. Take them odds.
That's 10 turns into 200.
Nice. That's good odds.
I mean, can't
beat that.
About that. Yeah.
No, not at all. But yeah, Ramczyk, if he would have continued his career at the trajectory he was on, he was a Hall of Fame lineman. Like legit. And it sucks to see his knees shot. Now that class is pretty much done. We'll see what happens if Kamara stays or Lattimore stays. But now
I think Lattimore stays.
You got to keep him. He's our best defender. You have to.
Did you see that someone mocked a Chargers trade with Lattimore for like a 4th?
Can't do it. And
that's insanity.
And this is what Chris said. He was like, if L'Jarius Sneed commanded, who's arguably the best cornerback last year, commanded a 3rd round draft pick from the Titans, what the fuck does Marshawn Lattimore command? It's like if it's just a 4th round pick, like you said, you can't fucking do it. Like
no.
You want you want a first and something
I want
else.
A first and a third.
Yeah, legit.
And I want a high first. I don't want
and
like
honestly,
26.
Marshawn is a top 5 corner in the league. You really would want a first and a second.
Push it up, buddy.
I didn't want to say top 3,
but you didn't hear his name a lot last year for a reason, because guys wouldn't want to throw his direction.
True. I'm saying top 5.
The only reason Alontae Taylor got to get so many interceptions. The only reason.
No, you're right.
Guys like Ugo Amadi out here doing 3 picks a season.
You're right. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Marshawn Lattimore is basically like it's like Revis Island. Like
my fandom says he's top 3. I'm just being objective, saying top 5 just to be safe. But you're absolutely right. But that's
my fandom says he's top 1. My objective says he's top 2.
But that's our NFL coverage. Really quickly before we get to Nick's baseball corner, I'm going to talk about the Pelicans really quickly. And on the later interview, the later episode later this week, Jake Madison will be coming on to talk Pelicans with us.
What do you have to say about Mr. Devin Booker, bro?
Look, so last night, that shit happens, bro. Like, that shit happens where sometimes you just come out and you just lay an egg. And that's what they did. They laid an egg. The Pelicans right now are, hold on, let me get the standings up. The Pelicans are in the West.
They played soft, man.
They did. They are right now a game behind 5th. 3 games behind 4th. I think it's very doable. I think it's very much so these guys can get to the 4th seed, which you want to do. Or if you stay on 6, you can avoid Denver. So, like, I think it's either get to the 4th or stay at the 6th. But they play the Magic tomorrow. By the time you guys hear this, I think that's a game they should win. And if they win, know that they're set. They're going to be at worst case 6. That's literally if they win, because they'll be above the required win stuff you need.
Yeah.
They play the Spurs, the Suns, the Blazers, the Kings, the Warriors, and the Lakers. I think out of that, the Magic, I'll say is a win. Spurs, I'll say is a win. I think they come back against the Suns and win at the Suns' home.
We'll see.
But that's a toss-up. All right, so look, guaranteed. Magic guaranteed. Spurs guaranteed. Suns toss-up. So 2-1. Trailblazers 3-1. Kings, I'm gonna say 4-1.
Okay.
Warriors 5-1, and Lakers toss-up because LeBron always comes. So if they finish the season 5-2, you can't beat that with a fucking stick.
No, you got to be happy with that.
And I think what the Suns thing was, there was no Brandon Ingram, so what they did was they collapsed the paint and played. Committed.
Did you see those tweets?
To Zion. Yeah, they committed.
Did you see those tweets where they had like 4 guys in the paint, and I was like, that's
why you need Brandon Ingram there, because Brandon Ingram's out there. It spaces out the floor. People have to focus on Trey Murphy, and you can't just leave Herb Jones because he's shooting 44% from 3. So it's like, and then you have CJ. So you can't play that way with those guys on the court. But I think it was good that Zion saw it now, because he can be prepared for what's to come. So
there you go.
But all right, that's basketball. I'll dive more into the Pelicans later this week with Jake. Nick, give us your baseball corner. What you think is going on in the baseball world? And like I said, on the Friday episode when we record, we'll get your Raging Cajuns picks for the week. So save your game picks for the second episode.
Well, so 11 games, best win streak in the country. Raging Cajuns baseball, absolutely smoking the Bobcats in San Marcos this week. They won one game by 11 runs.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to get that wrong. It was a double-digit number of run total differential. Absolutely insane. And just to put the icing on my little cake, Southern beat LSU.
Mm-hmm. And I saw LSU fans like denying it or something.
Dude.
They were like, this doesn't matter.
Mad online. the announcer for LSU radio literally tweeted out.
Oh, Chris Blair. Yeah, I saw that.
UL
I saw that.
Literally minutes after the game ended, and then people were like, "Dog, why are you thinking about us right now?" And he's like, "Why are you talking about me right now?"
Watch, I'm gonna pull it up.
You did this unprompted.
Wait, let me pull it up because he definitely was pissed off.
Yeah, it was 11. It was 16-5 on Saturday. UL smacked the Cats. 4-1, and then 7-6 in the rubber. I say rubber match. They swept the series. 11 straight wins for UL, and LSU has lost 6 of their last 7. So if you want the best baseball in Louisiana, you're coming to Lafayette.
Oh, he deleted it.
Oh, well, there you go.
What a baby. But basically, he tweeted right after they lost, because some of the Cajuns fans got on him, and they were like, look at that team across the. And he was like, don't worry, we'll see y'all this weekend, and we'll bust you. He basically put when LSU plays UL, was like,
well, LSU beat UL earlier in the season, and everyone was like, but UL run-ruled Southern. Southern beat LSU.
And so they were like, get ready for the second game.
Also, mind you, LSU, I think they do. And LSU beat the early season UL
baseball team.
So, that's going to be a whole thing. Anyway, no, huge weekend for UL baseball. And then if you're worried about the MLB, which I am, it's getting started, obviously, early,
Yankees, baby. Yankees looking good.
Early season MLB is always chaotic, ?
Yeah.
But yeah, the Yankees look pretty good.
5-0, man.
It's
early.
It's early. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Astros are also looking pretty crap.
Yep.
In comparison,
my Phillies are too, 1-3.
Phillies aren't looking very good. So, I mean, you got some teams that are not looking great here in the early going, but you got some teams that are looking really good. I mean, Detroit's looking good for some reason. They're
Pittsburgh.
If you ever wanted to see why early season MLB does not matter a fucking lick, Detroit Tigers are at the top of the AL Central.
And they will not win.
Pittsburgh Pirates are at the top of the NL Central, and both of those teams will probably be at the bottom at the end of the season.
Hey, but one team, I'm going to tell you now, I'm picking just the team that I think will do really well, the Orioles. I think the Orioles are going to kill this year.
So the Orioles are going to do very well this year, I think. And they're in a fairly weak division in the AL East.
It's just the Yankees they're worried about, essentially.
Basically, yeah. And the Orioles have been a team that's been on the come up for a while.
But now's the time for their young players.
Now is the time of their arrival. Last thing on baseball before I'm done, I have to mention.
I was about to. Are you gonna say Shohei? I was gonna ask you about it. Like,
okay, well let's do Shohei first because I want to finish with this
because I gotta ask you the Shohei shit. Do you think he gambled?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't really particularly care.
Okay,
and I'll explain why. Because none of the bets were on baseball. We know that none of the bets were on baseball.
Gotcha.
So I have always been an advocate of if you're a player, I think you could bet on sports that are not the sport you play.
I'm with you.
And I know people are like, yeah, but they know people from other sports. Okay. If my buddy was like, hey, I have a G on you to lose this fight, I am not losing the fight.
That fucking fight. Yeah, hell no. And I agree with you 100% because that's the difference between what is that situation and what's happening with Jonte Porter in the NBA. Exactly. Michael Porter's brother, who legitimately you can see video of him like prop bets on himself and him thinking, "Ooh, I'm gonna take the shot," and then either missing it on purpose or you can tell he did certain things that affected the bets. He is going to be done with basketball for the rest of his career if it turns out that's true. Shohei betting on football is completely different.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I don't think it is Shohei. I think he's too much of a freak.
Oh, you think it's really his?
I do really think
interpreter.
It is. I think they just had a weird news way to break that.
Gotcha.
I think that's mostly the issue, and obviously, apparently, more stuff's coming out about this interpreter. People are using that as like conspiracy theory bait. I don't really know. I frankly don't really care because
it wasn't on baseball.
Well, yeah, and this is kind of more of a personal thing. It's not necessarily morally correct to say this. But steroids ruined an era of baseball already. Let's not let betting ruin one of the brightest stars.
And I love the steroid era, man. It was so fun.
That's my point. Is like we love that era for a reason. Yep. It has a lot of people who look back on it fondly, and I mean, sports betting is, I would say, way less serious than
steroids. Yeah. So, only thing that will make it worse is if people are throwing games.
Yeah, I mean, if we got like
another Jonte, if someone of LeBron stature is doing that, that's a problem.
People talking about like betting on baseball, that always comes up with like
Pete Rose.
What's his name? Yeah, Pete Rose. Thank you. And I mean, that's always the kind of
that's the worry.
You gotta reinstate So
yep.
I don't know.
Oh, real quick, the Cajuns, you didn't talk much about them. They're 20-8. I know you're gonna do your picks
11
Friday.
straight wins. I didn't want to go in.
Yeah, okay,
too much
gotcha. We'll
Friday.
save it then. Yeah, we'll
11
save it
straight. I was gonna leave it 11 straight wins, 6 straight losses, or 6 out of 7 losses for LSU, but we're not gonna talk about that. 11 straight wins for UL. I mean, look, their arms are crazy. They're smooth on the base pass. They hit the ball a mile. They hit for contact.
No, I didn't realize you were waiting for Friday. Yeah, we can totally wait.
I'll say this. If you
because it's ULM this weekend.
Yeah, and if you want, Nichols is this week. That's going to be a midweek game, so I'll pick it now. UL is going to smoke the shit out of Nichols. So if we're still going to talk UL baseball for a second, though, I do want to mention that Matt Miguez, who we worked with closely during our time at the radio station, put out an absolutely amazing interview that he did with Kyle DeBarge and his family. Kind of chronicling that come up. And Kyle DeBarge is such a special baseball player, and he's something so special, and we're going to see him play a lot of Major League Baseball in the future. So go give that article a read if you have a chance. It's on Southwest Louisiana ESPN 103.7, I think, the game.
Yeah, the game. Well, yeah, 103.7 the game. Yep.
And you go give that a listen, because that is totally, I think, a read, because that is totally worth your time. Great work by Matt on that. Shout out Matt Miguez. But no, my last thing I wanted to say for baseball, a little somber. Former Red Sox CEO Larry Lucchino passed away. This was the guy. I mean, the Red Sox of our youth, Lyn and I. I mean, I don't know. You probably didn't watch much baseball growing up, based on the way.
I know. Manny Ramirez and Pedro and Big Poppy. I know
the Boston Red Sox that we got to watch growing up is partially
because of him.
A product of Larry Lucchino, and a lot of better Boston teams before that. So, always give flowers to guys who make big impacts on a sport when they pass away.
We can take a moment of silence for him.
Yeah, it feels good, and we'll take a minute here and just. Yeah. Thanks, Larry.
Peace. Yeah, thanks, Larry.
Peace, Larry.
Hell yeah. Well, that's pretty much our early episode for this week. We will have an episode dropping either Friday or Saturday, probably Friday. And that will be with our interview with Jake Madison. Nick will dive into the Cajuns playing ULM. It'll be a basketball heavy episode, so be on the lookout for that. Nick, tell the people where they can follow you at on social media.
Well, you can follow me at ShareIt'sMe on Twitter. If you're interested in video games and nerd culture, you can follow me over at Revenant Rogue on Twitter. It's reverse of what it is on everything else. And if you're interested in some sports blogs and really just entertainment blogs in general, you can go follow Vagabond Sports at Vagabond Sports, and check out our WordPress site. It's linked on our Twitter account. Please do that. Read all our articles. And shoot me a message on Twitter or whatever. Let me know you did, because the metrics on WordPress are weird. So just let me know if you like what you see, and we'll keep writing them out, banging them out for you.
Hell yeah. Make sure you check that out. Check out Nick's articles. Check out my own. We'll have it linked, like Nick said, in the description of this video, as well as on the Bros Who Think Twitter. Follow Bros Who Think at Bros Who Think. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to wherever you're listening to this audio podcast. And until next time, have a good one, and peace.